Hello, welcome. Welcome. Hi. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another session of Game Maker. So in this Game Maker series, myself, Halfdork, your host, and SandStorm Meetup, where you can find us on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, currently live streaming. You can also, if you choose to watch at a later date, or want to watch at a later date, check out the YouTube channel. I'll make sure to have some links available for you. But welcome, everybody. So if you're not familiar with what we do on this series, we are covering all of the basics you need to know to get started in the Game Maker. The last couple days, we took a look at templates. So we'll do a super quick review. We looked at templates, which you can essentially drag a map and just immediately start building on top of it. So that's a great starting point for those of you just now getting started with making a game in the sandbox. Then we, over the next 2 days, looked at behaviors. And so that's where we ended. And so behaviors are basically the artificial intelligence that you can give to an asset. And so feel free to check out the various YouTube channel videos where you can explore all the things we've talked about last week. But this week we're talking about components. So today we're going to cover all of the various components, and then the next episode this week we're going to be looking at box setted and bringing your assets with and without animations into the Game Maker. So that's going to be your custom assets. So we're going to take a look at that on Thursday. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But welcome in, friends. I see we've got Vox Machina, Hologram, Garnikin, Julie, Chihiro, OG Shakespeare, what's up? Apex, Ice Pilot, Cinzy, welcome in. Woke Zombie, how's it going? So, yeah, if you have questions, feel free to lay them on me. I'm here for it. Looks like Apex Mix got a little question for us. Is it possible to create an apple tree that you can remove said apples from that can give you health or whatnot? That is a fantastic question. So, my first assumption is that you have an apple tree. So, when it comes to the Game Maker, we actually do not have, like, by default, an apple tree. Or, you know, an apple for that matter. But we do have a tree. And we can fake some apples. There's no literal apples, but maybe we can get some fruit. Luckily, I have this berry fruit that Touche made. So, yeah, let's just walk through it real quick. Apex Mix, welcome in. Hey, Nervix is here. Roxy, Maxi, welcome in, guys. So, what Apex is asking for, I'm going to try a different song here. We'll find the right one. Hey, Sparky, what's up? Ice Pilot, how's it going? Yeah, Ice Pilot, I think I'm on the same page with you. So our tree here, what we can do is we can interact with the tree. And there's going to be several ways to make this happen. So I'm going to tell you the first one that comes to my mind, and maybe you'll think of something else along the way. But the first thought is we interact with the tree. So when we interact with the tree, it's going to say a message. So we can see here, we have a text to display. So text to display is more when you're talking to an NPC, but I use this for debugging purposes. So what I type here, I'm also going to input as the message itself. So if you didn't know what a message is in the Game Maker, a message is the logic. It's what goes on behind the scenes that tells one asset to communicate with another. So I want our tree to spawn an apple. So we'll say just spawn apple. So that means whenever I interact with the tree, we're going to edit the logic here. We'll do a 0-second delay here. Maybe 0.1, just so we can see the debugging text. But the message that is spoken when I interact is spawn.apple. So this text to display is just the visual of like, oh, it's saying this thing. So NPCs, for example, will usually say something when you talk to them. So this is for my debugging purposes, and I'll show you, what it looks like in the game. But what's going to happen is when I talk to the tree, it spawns an apple. So spawn.apple. So now we'll come over to our apple here, and we're going to add a behavior. And this is going to be an asset spawner. We're going to place it inside the tree, or loosely. Usually your asset spawners will be invisible, but for this specific example, we'll keep it visible. We're going to go ahead and remove collisions. So that way, if anything collides with it, such as the apple that falls, we don't want it to go flying elsewhere across the map. Now we're going to adjust what asset is spawning. So this is where you would add your apple. The behavior, we don't really need a behavior. Instead, we're going to give it a tag. So this is for later down the road when you're looking to use that apple for something specific. You can tag it. Like, let's say you had to bring an apple to an NPC to complete a quest. Next up, we can either add a collectible, or we can add the pickable. So you liked the idea of a pickable apple, so we'll try that. And then we're going to give it gravity, so it falls to the ground. And then lastly, the message required is going to be that same one we set up, spawn.apple. So with all that set up, it should, as soon as we talk to the tree, it'll send out that message, causing our apple to fall. So we can see the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, and we can pick it up and take it with us. I look like a complete goober in this setup, so I'm going to take off this armor. But hopefully that helped get you on the right track there, Apex. Apple shooting trees. Yeah, these are aggressive trees, Sparky. So I'm going to just remove all this armor. But today, we're going to be talking about the various components that make up the Game Maker. So this was a great introduction to the message or speaker component. So a speaker component, let's just take a quick look at it. This is probably the bread and butter of your games. Speaker components I use very often. Ice Pilot, I knew you were an island boy. So, the speaker component, there's various things you can do. It will serve as multiple purposes. The first one is like you can talk to a character. So we can set up a character, for example. Let's do the patrolman. I've been using him in a lot of our exercises. This was made by Nervex74 here in chat. Hope you're doing well, Nervex. So when you interact with him, he says, "Hey Sandstorm, go buy our merch." Hey Sandstorm friends, he's addressing you. He's talking to you guys, not me. I don't have to buy our merch. Hopefully the Sandstorm gives me free merch. You know what? I hope you're listening, Sandstorm. We all want free merch here. Speaking of merch, maybe the sandbox will eventually, provide a way for us to get merch. I would love an NFT that just gives us merch. I'm on a tangent. Back to the job at hand. We're going to be talking about the speaker component. So when we talk to Nervex, we could also make a berry fall from the tree that spawn apple. That same message could happen. Or we can have maybe something happen behind him. Perhaps a door opens. So behind him, we can add a extra message here that when we talk to Nervex or this patrolman, talk to patrol. So talk.patrol is what I'll be using. So every time we talk to this patrolman, it'll send out that specific message. And depending on how long this delay is, so the auto hide delay, that's how often we can interact with him as well. So if I set this to a higher number, like 10, that means I can only talk to him every 10 seconds, which means I can only open and or close the door every 10 seconds. So we can just take a quick look at that. So it does appear that the dialogue doesn't go away if I spam the button. I can still send that message repeatedly just by talking to him. Yeah, Hologram knows what's up. You approve? Oh, thank you, Sparky. As long as one person approves, I'm okay. So, another thing we can do is instead of an interact, we can use a detect. So a detect entity basically allows me or a different object that when it enters into this space, this blue radius, which we can adjust based on the range, which we can also see has a attribute. So quick pop quiz here. Who knows all 5 attributes? Wait, they're up on screen here. Don't look. But there are 5 attributes and we'll kind of gloss over what they do. So when I get close to this patrolman, now he notices us and says his line, I didn't have to interact with him. So let's try something even more complicated. We can have the only thing that toggles this door and thus, you know, interacts with this character is when the apple falls from the tree. So we can see we already set up this apple here that will fall pretty much on top of our patrolman. So when I talk to the tree, or interact with the tree, I should say, our apple falls, and that's what's going to activate our patrolman. And of course, I can move the apple out of the way. And so after 10 seconds, that dialogue will disappear. And so if I try to talk to Nervix, interestingly enough, I can still interact with him. And it's still activating the door, which I don't think is intentional. Okay, maybe I was just too close to the door, actually. So the door was registering that I was interacting with it. Just for testing, I'm going to move it a little bit further away. So, if I interact with the patrolman, the door should not open. It was because I was actually just too close to the door, because I set the door up to also work on interact. But if I talk to the tree, it's going to allow our patrolman to say his message as well as close that door. So you can have like some interesting puzzle mechanics with that. Ooh, Ice Pilot knows it. Luck, magic, speed, power, defense, and heart. And fire, earth, wind, water. No, Ice Pilot got it right. We have luck, magic, speed, defense, and power. So let's just take a quick look at those attributes so we can see their icons here. We have power, defense, speed, magic, and luck. I don't know why they didn't alphabetize them, Sandbox. Like it's an interesting order, but we're gonna go ahead and take a look at what each one of those does. So we have, I'm just gonna drop some examples from my inventory. Let's take a look. So out of these assets, we have sword here. So we can see it has 89 power. So what that means is if I was attacking an object, which I can do so, we can go run over to a destroyable asset real quick. So this sword had 89 power. So if I hit this wolf, I'm dealing 5, 5, 5, 10 damage. So if I equip this weapon, so I can go into my select equipments and we'll equip that same weapon, which has 89 power. I'm doing 19 damage. So it kind of, as you could plainly see, it increases the damage done. So our character here, this wolf, will also have a damage increase. So we can see the attack damage scales with the power. So we can see the icon here. So not only is power important for that, you can also use it on a bird. So if we were to place a bird here, so a bird behavior. I gotta turn off my channel points. Ooh, collectibles look interesting in Sandbox. Paul, what's up, Life Made Me? How you doing, dude? Welcome in. Yeah, that's a great question. We can take a look at that. I've seen a couple templates, so we'll actually visit templates after we talk about attributes. So we'll just poke around a template, and then we're going to talk about components, and that'll be the bulk of our stream today. But power will also adjust the width of your flight. So that's like a brief idea of what power is. More or less, it's the strength of an asset. It's the damage, because that's the biggest use you'll find. You can also see in the controller settings all of the damage that is associated with whatever character you're playing as. So let's see how to unlock this. You can actually have this editable by swapping to a custom avatar. And let's just say I wanted to play as Andy Ritchie here. So Andy Ritchie has a set power for everything, but because we're using a custom asset and not the player's asset, we can adjust these things. So like we can have our first attack not do 47. Instead, we can adjust it to whatever we like. We'll also notice now that speed has a factor itself. We can adjust the run speed, the sprint speed, and the climb speed. Our jump is also adjusted by power, so that's worth noting. But then majority of power applies to the attack damage. And can you add any of these attributes to the apples? So you can't add attributes in the game maker. This is an important thing to note, so great question, Apex. All of the attributes, so for example, this egg here has 81 luck. That was given to it when it was minted or published onto the marketplace. So these attributes, which we will have 1 to 4. If we take a look in our inventory here, we can see like the Alpha Dragon is a great example. It is a legendary, so it has 4 gems. The gems it holds are 3 power gems and 1 defense gem. If we take a look at a different asset, the Alpha Gate, it has 2 gems in it, a health and a magic gem. So let's just place that one real quick and we can see what it does. So this giant gate here, it has defense and it has magic. More or less, these attributes won't do anything. Like this magic will not have any effect with the door itself. It's more so for like a collector's kind of purpose. It's like, oh, it's a magic gate. But it does have health, which means it'll be harder to break. So let's say we gave this door a health component. It would have 200 health. Whereas a normal door, like this one, if we were to give it a health component, it only has 50 health. Some great questions coming in. Yeah, so I did get a little bit off track, and Julie, I'll answer your question, then we're going to come back to Garnikins and Life Made Me's. So Julie asked, can we add attributes to assets like NPCs by giving them or parenting them to another asset with greater attributes? That is a great workaround. I would actually advise that. Like, that's a great suggestion. If you, for whatever reason, can't make another asset, I would suggest republishing like a new version of the asset, maybe even giving it like a different colored armor or like different hair color if we're talking like an enemy, or if you need like an asset to have a specific set of attributes. By giving it that specific set, you're not overcomplicating things later down the road. Because when you're parenting objects together, there's this potential risk that your game doesn't communicate properly. With several of my games, parenting was essential to the gameplay, and it sometimes like clicking the restart button in the game. So I'll give you an example. My Sandy Bird game, which I did for a recent game jam, it used the glider mechanic. So you would jump up and down after grabbing an object. But if you died, you would have to leave the game maker completely in order to replay, because restarting, the hierarchy didn't connect properly. It didn't reconnect properly. So what I'm suggesting here is you should always try to have the attributes on the asset in question. But you can also do what you're suggesting. You could have like this sign here be the parent, and then you would have like, let's say this giant octopus here. The giant octopus is going to act as the the health of our sign. So we're just going to say sign health. And so if we wanted to destroy the sign, you know, we'll then have to basically break open this giant octopus. And so we can set that up. Like, that's not impossible. But it's you're kind of limiting yourself in a way. So the attributes assigned at minting, creating, step, making an asset. That is correct. And Thursday, we're going to go more into detail on this. I went on a bit of a tangent. We're just going to quickly gloss over the other assets then. So using Wizzy as an example, we have speed, which is going to be your run speed. Magic, which more or less is associated with healing, and interaction range. So you as the player actually have a set interaction range, so we can actually see it here, that is increased based on your magic potential. So if we were to swap from Andy Ritchie here, so Andy looks to have luck and speed as his assets. If we were to, you know, go to Wizzy the Blue as an example, we can see the interaction range, the range at which we can interact with objects, is increased. But the main use for magic is healing at this time. In the future, we're going to hopefully have like magical spells that will be affected, such as like ranged attacks, projectiles, but that probably will not be for quite some time. But for now, the magic attribute does affect healing, and it also affects the, I think, height of a bird's flight. So if we go to the bird behavior, we can see the height can be increased with the magic attribute. That's the main use for magic. Then we have luck. So luck, if you weren't aware, affects the detection range of basically every type of component or asset. So luck is generally the green sphere you'll see around an object. So for example, our patrolman, which we were detecting the apple, like that is affected by luck. There's also drop rate. So if we wanted to have this patrolman instead drop something, we can see we can drop up to 3 of an asset, and we can offset them if we like. But we can, if we destroy him, so we'll give him a health component of 1, and if we were to attack him, he can drop a particular asset. So he's spawning an asset. He'll drop these cool shades. And so they're collectible, which is a component we're going to look more at in detail. So I've slain him, and he drops these glasses. Let me pick him up. What else? Yeah, I mean, that kind of briefly covers the various assets or attributes. They all have their uses. I would say the most valuable, and this is my personal opinion, would be power. Because attack damage, I think a lot of people enjoy that idea of, you know, slaying something faster than others. Cool, so let's go back to a couple other questions that were asked. And then once the questions run out, we're going to be looking at the components. And so it looks like Apex was talking about healing when the apple dropped. which is a great suggestion. So Apex had asked about the apple tree giving you health. So we'll take a look at that. I'm going to write that down, so we'll revisit it. Because that's a good use case. But I wanted to make sure everybody's questions were answered. So Paul, Life Made Me, said, how can we make collectibles look interesting? So I wanted to just briefly point out there are assets, or I should say museum-like templates that you can just check out in the main menu. So this is how the Sandbox presents their assets, and if you were to explore the alpha, you understand, the Sandbox puts on display their NFTs. So if we were to just kind of explore here, we can see that there are like nightclubs, shopping centers. There's a modern house template. This one actually has things set up. So we'll just load it up and I'll just give you a brief example. And yes, please do check out the templates section in the Sandbox Drafts Gallery for those of you new. It's a great way to get started. There's actually some fantastic tutorials that we explored last week. So let's just say I wanted to display one of my items here. We can see they actually kind of gave us all of these locations here. Let's go to the roof. That are great starting points. So let's say you had a collection. These banners here aren't good for NFTs. You can't even actually put an NFT in them. Well, I take that back. You can place NFTs in them, but they're like structured for, like portrait mode. And so most NFTs are 1-to-1 ratio. So you'll want to look at different ways to present your NFTs. However, for this particular example, let's place a sword on display. So we'll use the alpha sword. If we wanted to display our alpha sword, let's put it in this box here. And then I'm gonna put it in the glass. So think of it like, oh, you're visiting your friend's house and he has this ancient katana under the glass. You'll be like, wow, what does that do? And so what you can have is like a little sign here that when your friend, walks up to it, because this is your sword, and obviously you'll, have a full glass case here. But when you talk to the sign, it's going to tell you the NFT displays. So because the asset itself is inside the glass, we need to use a speaker component that when we talk to the speaker, aka the sign, it's sending out a message that is then received by our sword. So we can see that this asset now has the NFT details display, and it's waiting for that sword message. So when I talk to the sign, it's going to tell me more information about the sword. So hopefully that gives you a good example of how to present your assets better. I just wanted to kind of reveal that there is a template inside the drafts gallery to get you started, especially if you want to make a gallery like this. It's a great way to get into it. Roxy, feel free to drop your questions. And Garnican asked, before we leave this map, Garnican asked the speaker, is there a way to make an and condition? Something like if asset A and asset B is near, send a signal. The first thing that comes to mind is you would trigger a way to destroy an asset. So yeah, let's just take a look at that. I think that's a great idea, Garnican. It's a little bit more complicated, but I love what you guys are, throwing out there, and you're the ones here watching right now. So it might be a little bit more advanced for some people, but it's also a great kind of like troubleshooting exercise. So what we're going to do for this particular example is we're going to have a patrolman that wants us to bring him two things. He wants a ball, and he wants a cat. So first thing we'll do is we're going to remove any behaviors. We're going to tag them. This one's going to be cat. This one will be ball. And then both of these need to have the pickable component so we can pick them up. So what we want then is for when we bring them to our patrolman, which we're going to have two different invisible detectors that each detect both the cat and detect the ball. So one detects the cat, one detects the ball. And this is actually getting more complicated as we go, but this is interesting. I think this is very interesting. So we're going to do detect entity. One's going to be the ball. When it detects it, it's going to be quest 1. So we'll do Q1. More specifically, we'll do Q1.ball. And then we're also going to have this second lamp have a speaker component. So this is a good example of what a speaker component can do that will detect the ball, or I'm sorry, detect the cat, because we already set up the ball. So when we bring the cat, it'll send out Q1.cat. Hey, Dizzy, welcome in, dude. Genius. Garnican, I don't know about genius, but you're giving me a problem and I'm anxious to solve it now. Plus, I like these types of, I guess, mental gymnastics. It's like a puzzle, you know? I think everybody enjoys puzzles. So basically, when we spit out, or I'm sorry, when we bring the animal or the ball to our patrolman, the patrolman will basically say, oh, you found it. You found my cat. So we'll say patrolman. And then also the patrolman, so we're just renaming the lamp here. We'll say, you found my ball. So those two messages then have to be fulfilled in order for us to continue. Let's just say we had a quest, and I'll probably save quests for another day. Instead, we're going to show you what I would call kind of like a stealth quest. This is actually what I use for side quests a lot, and I call it the ball in the basin method. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, what is going on? What's happening? And so what's going to happen is when we bring those assets, it's going to destroy a basin. So it's destroying, so we can see the health component. So this is a great kind of tutorial for the health component. It's destroying it once it receives one of those messages. So we have q1.ball. And so then we're going to duplicate it, place it underneath. And this one will be destroyed once q1.cat is received. And lastly, we're going to have an object. It doesn't matter what object, but I generally use a ball. That falls, so it has collisions and gravity, and then it also has a tag. So q1.ball. So this ball is going to fall into the basins. Both of these basins have a health component. They can be destroyed. So when we bring the cat and this ball to our patrolman, he is going to essentially say, hey, you found my blah blah blah. And when he says that, it destroys one of these two basins. Our ball thus will fall. If we find this one first, it will, destroy this basin, landing into the second one. Or if we find the cat first, it's going to destroy this one, but the ball won't have moved because it's already resting here. Then, basically, when we find the second object, the ball will hit the ground. So we'll add a new detector here. So this new detector is going to be a speaker component, which says victory. However, it'll only say victory when q1.ball, which we labeled this one, so this one has the tag q1.ball. So it's only going to say victory once the q1.ball lands inside of its detection radius. Let's see if I set that all up correctly. So we can see our ball is currently resting in the basin. We're going to bring our cat to our patrolman. We can see the second basin has been destroyed, but the ball remains. We're going to deposit our cat off of the apartment. He has 9 lives, he's fine. And then the second ball will destroy, and when we destroy it, that completes the second objective. Bada bing, bada boom. I did it right the first time, giving us victory. So now we can actually take a look at 2 specific components. So we actually put a great kind of series of events here to take a look at sound. So we're going to look at sound effects. We're going to take a look at victory, and we're going to take a look at defeat. So all 3 of these are components. So we're back on track, everybody. We're learning about components. So our number pads are going to serve as these components. We're going to make 3 of them. And all 3 of them, we're going to start from scratch. So we're just going to remove any components and behaviors. One thing you can do, instead of going onto each one and then deleting blah blah, you can just delete these 2, and we'll just duplicate this one twice more. So we're going to have 3 number pads. One will be victory. One will be defeat. And then the last one will be a sound effect. So what we'll do, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it, but I hope so, because of the way my stream is set up for this tutorial. Yeah, Garnican, I use that very frequently. Do rewatch it if you need. I can also, walk through it again if we have time. But this last one, we want a sound effect to play, which will be, we'll do the event add, and it's gonna be waiting on a massage. And 2 things. We're gonna have it play when we do receive message q1.ball. We'll make it interruptible, and we're going to remove the 3D sound. So quick look at everything a play sound mechanic can do. You can choose whatever sound you like. You can have it be 3D sound. This means that if you're next to like an arcade machine, for example, you're only going to hear those sounds next to the arcade machine. If you uncheck 3D sounds, it's no matter where you are on the map, you're going to be listening to that arcade machine, so long as the message that activated it goes through. But if 3D sound is enabled, this sound range, we can see this yellow highlight here. That's the radius, or the diameter. The diameter being from the far sides to the other far side, or radius being from the asset itself to one side. That's going to be the range. But that is specific to the 3D sound. Lastly, in these settings, you can have it loop. So this asset can continue to play whatever sound. Usually the loop would be used for music. And you can have it interrupted. So let's just say your music, for example, which we set up in a previous stream here at Sandstorm, you could swap between different songs. So we actually made a quick DJ. So our DJ, we would talk to him and he would stop the music so we could talk to him. But then he would play the next song that we chose. So with our setup here, we are playing a sound whenever we bring the ball to our patrolman. What we'll also do is duplicate this one more time, and we're going to also play that sound when we bring the cat. And so with these 2 number pads, we're now going to associate this victory message, and we can spit out the word victory when the ball finally hits the ground, which we already set up, where when we bring both the cat and our ball to the patrolman, he will allow us to claim victory. So we're actually going to remove collisions from our cat and our ball just for fun. And because we now have this victory message set up, so we can take a look at it again. So we're claiming victory once that quest ball, the ball that falls from those basins, lands on the ground. We'll be able to claim victory. We'll come down to our number pad, and we're going to add a new component called victory. So the victory condition will only be received once that victory message comes through. So if we set things up correctly, we'll bring our cat. And it looks like I have my sound muted, so let me unmute it. As my cat contemplates existence. Yeah, he landed on his feet. He's fine. And bada bing, bada boom. We have victory. And so, now that we've set up victory, it's just as easy to set up defeat. So we can take a look at the second number pad we have. And we're now going to place the component defeat. So we can see inside the logic, quite simple. When this particular message is received, and we can put any message here, but by default, it's at defeat. We can also have that same quest line give us defeat. So we have sound effects when we get the correct asset. See a kitty cat. And then when it hits the ground, we get game over. Great. Any questions, class? Defeat when you throw the cat off the roof. Nervex, that's genius. Okay, let's try that. So we'll set that up real quick. So if we throw the cat off the roof, that's what's going to give us the defeat message. So instead, with our detector here, I'm going to reattach the victory message. And so if we bring the cat over here to the edge of the cliff, and for whatever reason the cat, plummets. And so what you can do is you can actually add. Let me test this. This is interesting. So if the cat hits the ground, or if the cat kind of like flies past a certain point. No, I think we want it on the ground. So if the cat hits the ground, that's what's going to give us defeat. But what we can do is we can have that ground be the entire kind of map, or at least, in a large area here. We can have a message broadcaster that sends the defeat message across the entire map only when the cat is detected. I don't think that's what we want. I think if the cat falls off the building, it needs to take damage. That's what'll trigger this series of events. So we'll do damage 1000. So this is a unique thing to keep in mind if you ever want to deal damage to an asset outside of hitting them. You can deal damage by using this message format. It's called damage number. So we'll do damage 1000 to our specific tag. So the tag is going to be the cat, but the cat has to be on the ground. So the cat basically touches the ground. And so we can do broadcast range of 50. Maybe smaller, like 30, so we can see that radius there. So the cat will die. I'm sorry, cat. I'm using you as an example. So the cat falls, and once the cat reaches the ground, we don't want it to wait. Instead, it's just immediately dealing damage to the cat. So once the cat falls, it needs to have a health component. And once it falls, it's sending out the defeat message. And it's going to be sending it specifically So one more time, because I put it in the wrong section here. So the cat is destroyed. When it's destroyed, it actually has a lot of health. But when it's destroyed based on whatever series of events, so like we could essentially kill it ourselves, you know, like we could destroy it ourselves. But no matter how it dies, it's going to send on death defeat. That message will be received by our numpad. So I use NP for numpad. But this is important because whenever the cat is dying at sending a message, it has to have this tagged recipient. So then we're going to go to our number pad here with the defeat. We're going to add that tag. It's good to add tags to pretty much all your number pads. It's beneficial. So if we set this up correctly, our cat immediately dies. We get game over. So the radius was actually too large for our lamp here. So we're going to shrink it. Try 20. Great, so now our cat is alive. However, we can still complete the quest. But if we drop the cat, he hits the ground, splat, and we get game over. Let's see. Liquid is an option. I would actually recommend Apex with your blocks to have it as translucent as possible. So blocks are the only thing we can make translucent in the game. We actually can't make assets that are translucent. You can fake translucent assets. So with windows, for example, the museum windows are a great example of this. They use this in the alpha. So they give you this frame to where you're essentially filling in the window with the blocks themselves. So you would use like these blocks that I used with the sword. But yeah, I think that's a good example. Fun little mini game there. All right, so I'm gonna go back to our template map. We're gonna take a look at a couple more components before we wrap up today's stream. If anybody has questions, feel free to drop them in chat. So, where we last left off, we were taking a look at the various ways to add a drop. So we can use this drop method to where a message, perhaps our character here, will drop a berry once we do spawn apple. See how that interaction works. I've never actually tried this one. Why am I spawning so far away? But so we talked to the tree. So now he's actually dropping his glasses to where we can pick him up. I mean, that component is relatively self-explanatory. Let me just go back to my normal avatar. So he's basically dropping the 3D glasses, but we'll make him drop some berries. And the amount that he's supposed to be dropping is 3. Unfortunately, every time I've tested it so far, it's not been dropping 3. But we'll see what happens. We're going to offset it by 5, so that means it'll spawn up to 5 blocks away. Maybe we'll do like 3 blocks away. But he's just waiting for that message before he drops an item. So I see some questions here in chat. Roxy asks, why having an asset with legendary catalyst but without a gem attribute will do nothing? Having all 4 empty slots still affects certain attributes in the game. That's a good point, Roxy. I mean, in general, the catalyst determines the rarity. The gem determines the attributes. And so what you're suggesting is the legendary, by default, has specific attributes. So that's actually an important thing to note. And I would honestly argue that having a catalyst is more valuable than having 4 gems. So if you had a catalyst of any size, you're able to mint your asset. So by default, the rarity, and that can be common, rare, epic, or legendary, they all have like a default kind of stat allocation, kind of like a starting point. So if we were to just take a look, this patrolman, as an example, is a rare. However, he has 2 gems, it seems. But this icon, it doesn't appear as though he has gems. So that's it's interesting. I don't think it's very consistent behind the scenes. But we can see some of these assets, like this pavilion, again, doesn't have any gems in it, but it still seems to have defense and luck. And we can see by these icons here in the top right and left. So this pavilion doesn't have any gems in it. However, this pride does. So I think it's a little bit inconsistent, is all. So Julie asks, if I use the speaker detection to enable or send a message, is there a way to reverse that? Like when I'm no longer detecting that item, it will send another message. So if I use the speaker detection to enable or send a message, is there a way to reverse that? Like when I'm no longer detecting that item, it will send another message. Yes. So my first thought, as an answer to that question, is using a toggle. So for example, let's just say our lamp here has a message broadcaster. So this is the key to what I think you're trying to accomplish, Julie, is having a message broadcaster. So no matter what the situation is, so for this example, we're going to use damage 1 so that it's going to completely always hit the player. So specific tag, it's going to be targeting the player inside of this radius. So no matter where I am in this yellow circle, it's going to deal damage 1 to the player. However, let's just say I have a detector here that is waiting for me to bring the apple. So when I bring the apple, which we labeled, I believe, so apple. So we'll just take a quick look here. Yep, we've got our apple. So when I bring the apple to this, radius, so obviously we'll have a different asset here, but I'm using it as an example. But when I bring the apple, it's going to turn off. So we'll do apple off, apple dot off. So it's sending out this message, which will be received by our damage here as a toggle. So the initial state will be on or off. So maybe the apple will turn it off. So by default, it'll be on. We'll do apple dot off. So let's see if this works, and then we'll kind of revisit it. So by default, I should be, taking damage. So I'm taking 1 point of damage every like 5 seconds. But if I bring an apple, and it has to be this apple over here. I no longer take any damage. So I think, Julie, to answer your question, a message broadcaster is what you're looking for, and a way to toggle that message broadcaster on and or off. Okay, so with all the advanced questions being covered, let's take another look at the remaining components. So we talked about defeat, we talked about drop, we talked about health, speakers, victory, pickable. We talked about sound yesterday, but let's go ahead and revisit it once more. And we did add a sound effect to our quest. But what we set up here was a asker behavior that when we talked with this DJ, we can say, oh, I want to listen to dubstep. But we can also stop the music. We can change between dubstep and funk just by talking to him. And we can just stop it by talking to this sign. So a couple things are going on behind the scenes. And so we're just gonna look at them real quick, and hopefully it gives you an idea of what you can do with sound. So we have several things going on. The first thing is no matter which message we click with the DJ, so it was either dubstep or funk, it's sending out a stop message first. So the stop message allows us to not have overlapping music. So we can see message send stop, which is going everywhere to all entities, and it's only when those two messages are received. We also, let's just say we have a message. So I added a timer here. So this is using a health component as a timer, which we can get more into detail on another stream because we're running out of time. But what happens is when I say the message dubstep, so I talk to the DJ, DJ's like, hey, what do you want to listen to, dubstep or funk? So if I pick dubstep, it's talking to this little number pad here and saying, oh, he picked dubstep. And so it destroys itself. And after a very short timer, so 0 seconds is like almost a half second, really. So after 0 seconds or a half second, it's going to tell my radio, so send tag radio dubstep.play. And now if I click on my radio, which we can see it's tagged radio, it's going to play the dubstep music on loop. It's interruptible, however, even though it's looping, but it's only playing when that message is received. And so again, the series of events is we talk to our DJ. The DJ says, hey, what song do you want to listen to? We either pick dubstep or funk. And then once we pick those, two things happen. We're stopping all songs. So that's this message broadcaster, this lamp. And then if we pick dubstep, it's going to destroy this little number pad here, which is then telling, after a brief delay, this radio to start the music. So I hope you all have learned something today, and I appreciate you for watching. We're just going to quickly go over the last remaining components. So Climbable, pretty obvious what that does. They even have that as ladders here throughout the zone here. But a climbable component doesn't really have anything you can edit. You can adjust the climbing speed, so like how fast you climb. But generally speaking, people want to climb fast. Don't torture people with slow climbing. What else can we add? Oh, the rarity is actually a good one to end on. But you can also adjust indicators, which is the text on top of a component. That's actually a great thing we should visit next session. So I'll leave that for next session. And then you can also set up an NFT. So that's another thing we can talk about next session. But the one we'll end on today is the Rarity Vfx. So I have a little setup over here. Where's my spawn? So we'll spawn right in here. And we're going to pick 4 assets here, each with a different rarity. So we've got a legendary. We've got a rare. I want to make sure I pick small objects here. So this is an epic. We have a common. And then we have a rare. So each of these assets varies in size, and we'll see how that matters in a second here. But all 4 of them, we want to give the Rarity Vfx component. So I'm going to select them from the top. This is kind of the solution we have without shift click. So right now you can't shift click to multi-select, which is frustrating. But we can add component, rarity effect. And so because each of these has a different rarity, we'll immediately notice, if we go back into the game now, that they each have a different glow. So a couple things to note is the pivot point for some of these assets varies. So we can see this bookshelf and this flower headband have differing pivot points. Also, our dragon seems to have an off-center pivot point. So let's pick some different examples for those 2, or 3, I should say. We have a merchant, and some of these assets were just free. I found, in the marketplace. Generally speaking, you don't want to use free assets from the marketplace in your experiences when it's for a competition. If you're doing it for fun, no problems. But if you're doing a competition, you do not want to use someone else's assets, because that can get you disqualified, and you don't want that, do you? Do ya? So we'll select these three. We're gonna add that rarity component. And so now let's just take a quick look at what that rarity component can do. Giant rat. Paul, are you scared of rats? If there was a critter, like one critter I don't want to be alone with, it would be spiders. Yeah. I think I'm okay with a snake, as long as it's not like venomous or poisonous. Spiders. I don't know if I can handle a spider. So, with our Rarity Vfx, we can adjust the intensity, we can adjust the height, and we can adjust the sparkles intensity. So let's actually make a mental note here of the numbers. We have 1.085 and 1.08. So if I go to my epic here, he actually has slightly higher of each of these. And with my legendary, even more so. So we can adjust the height, the sparkles, so these are kind of like the flecks that come off of it. So we see the sparkles are flying off of this lady now. She's practically glowing. Same with this gentleman and this rat. You can adjust the height. Like, let's, you know, I've never actually tried this. What if we did a halo height of 0.1? Well, this girl will try 0.5. So this guy will try 0, just to see what it looks like. I mean, that's a kind of neat effect. You might be able to use that in one of your games. But to have that halo kind of at the feet of maybe an important character. Someone you should talk to. So the blue one had 0.5. This guy had 0.1. That's something. Yeah, I can't do spiders here. Lizards, Julie. Yeah, I mean, lizards they're friendly, right? Can you make a see-through cup on box set showcasing whatever liquid is inside? So Apex, you can't make the cup see-through. So it's important to note that when you're building an asset, and we're gonna actually visit this Thursday. So if you're around Thursday, Apex, we'll actually take a serious look at it. But you can't make a cup see-through. You can fake it. So you can make it look as though it's see-through. So it's like, think of it as though you're looking at a 2D piece of artwork, even though it's voxelized, but you're kind of looking through it and you'll have that off-color look. So maybe like the rim of the cup is white, and that represents glass. But then when it hits the liquid itself will be like a off-white blue. But if you were to look aerially inside of the cup, it would be perfect blue, as though it's water. You catch what I mean? So from the outside, it's off-white blue, but if you're looking above it, it's normal blue. Shout out to the creator of that rat. True that. This is a legendary asset, and one that I would not want to encounter in a giant sewer. Jesus, hope you're well. Alright guys, we are wrapping up our stream now, and I thank you all for watching. I threw together this little ending. Ba, 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 ba. Let the credits roll. We'll see if anybody's live for a raid though. But thank you all so much for watching. If you have more questions, feel free to tag me or the Sandstorm on Twitter. You all are very welcome to reach out to me, even here on Twitch. My name is HalfDork. The O is a 0. It doesn't look like anybody else is streaming the sandbox, so we won't be raiding. But I greatly appreciate all of your love, affection, attention, and etc. So, Thanks so much for watching. We're wrapping things up. Thanks all. Have a great Monday. Great week, even. See you later, Archer Flu. Marley, man, my man. See you, Marley. Roxy, appreciate you. Apex, Julie, Paul, thanks, guys. And everybody here that was visiting earlier, thanks again. Vox Machina, G. Have a great day.